Great Thursday evening, March 25th, 2021. To God be the glory for yet another closing of a beautiful day. Hope you enjoyed the blessings of the Lord this very day, closing out on the last week of Women's History Month. And we reviewed how Claudette Colvin, the teenager who was a forerunner, one of them, because there were several other people who refused to get up from the bus system down south, Jim Crow laws. So she was a teenager 9 months before Rosa Parks started the Montgomery bus boycott. We know that was in March 1955. Well, listen, we need to know our history because remember Claudette Colvin, the teenager, was saying it was because that her high school was studying about social justice at the time that she felt compelled. She felt, listen, the strength of Sojourner Truth, which was Isabella Baum-Free, and Harriet Tubman. We have to know our story, our history, and her story, especially this month. And this has something to do with the second chapter of Judges, where it says in verse 10 that this new generation, they were not familiar. They didn't know about the Lord. In fact, it says, and also that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation who was clueless. They had no connection after them, which knew not the Lord, and they didn't know the works which he had done for Israel. So who dropped the ball? Was it the parents, or the grandparents, or the neighbors, or the teachers? Who didn't pass the baton to them? Who didn't transmit and transfer that faith and that teaching to them? Oh, let it not be us in 2021 and beyond. Because guess what? We're going to be out the scene. We're going to be away. We're going to be gone. And then there's going to be a new generation who come up who will be the parents, the leaders, the adults. And if they don't have the history as far as the faithfulness of the Lord in them, well, when the hard times come, it's going to be like this in verse 3. It says that they had thorns in their sides, and their gods, their idols, became a snare unto them. We don't want thorns and thistles in a hard way for our children and the people coming up. Something about Sojourner Truth, which I really admired and I forgot. She had several children. She was one of 12. But back then, because she was so tall and strong, she was sold into slavery at 9 years old. And then she grew up, and then she had children of her own. Well, her children were taken away. But she was able to fight for one, at least one, and his name was Peter. And they tried to take him away, and she went to the court system. And like I said, she didn't know how to read or write, but she had the strength of the Lord. And she had the knowledge of God. So there was a lady who read the Bible to her. So she was able to follow. She had strategy. She was able to raise funds, and she was able to get her son back. What are we doing? We are able to read and write. We are able to think of ideas and strategize and be on the front lines. Oh, let's make sure that the faith of God is within us, that we are strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, and we'll be able to put on the whole armor of God, even if we're not 6 feet tall like Sojourner. But we have some work to do as far as social justice, economic justice, financial justice, spiritual justice. Come on, we want everybody to come into the fold, into the understanding of the Lord. Because today is the 25th of March, we would have gone to the 25th chapter of Proverbs. Do you have anything to say, Timotheus?
The 28th verse.
The 28th verse. And we read this because it's so important. He or she that have no rule, right? We don't need a master. We don't need a slave master to rule over us. The Holy Spirit promises to be our guard, our controller. It says, when you don't have rule over your own spirit, it is likened to a city that is wild, that is broken down, unprotected, without walls. What do you have to say about that, son?
Like, it's just a good analogy to think about for someone who doesn't have discipline and who doesn't control himself. He's like defenseless and just unprotected.
You're unprotected. And it said in Judges, the 2nd chapter, that the Lord withdrew protection from the Israelites because they started going into idolatry and they started worshiping these crazy elements. And the main force that protected and guarded the Israelites was taken away because they made choices. So guess what? Our choices will lead us to more safety or to being vulnerable. We don't want to be vulnerable and unexposed, especially what's going on around us. But we want to be able to have confidence in the Lord, in his power and his might, to be able to journey with confidence, with the strength and the might, so that we'll be able to do mighty things in him and through him, not through ourselves. So let's make sure that we're passing the baton and we're building ourselves in our most holy faith. Thank you, Timotheus. Have a wonderful evening, serving the Lord and getting strong in him.